telling your financial story to banks and investors. Prepared for and presented at the 2017 Square One Entrepreneurship Training Program. Square One is a program of the Center for Emerging Technologies. CET is an affiliate of the Cortex Innovation Community. Square One is funded in part by the Missouri Technology Corporation.
I spend my time actually teaching customers and clients how to tell their story. For me, the most important thing in putting a client together with a source of financing is you having been able to tell your story. And a lot of people don't really know how to tell the story the right way. They don't really know the components. You don't know exactly what that person is listening for in order to release the funds from the wallet, right? You don't have to agree with me, you can say no. So our company, just a little commercial, our company is Capaha Partners, LLC. We are pretty much just an advisory firm. We advise our clients on investments, risk management. We use a collaborative branch of knowledge and financial resources, and we've helped privately owned small businesses and middle market clients with annual revenues ranging from, and that's a little different now, from $100 million down to $1 million in revenue. To me, it really doesn't matter the size of the revenue. Every deal is pretty much the same. A dollar is a dollar. If you need $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million, it's still the same components. Telling your story, telling it right, and attracting that dollar out of someone else's hand. Oop, other way. So what I really gear in on is that our clients have invested their life savings. And I tell you that from the standpoint of experience. I myself have been an entrepreneur a few times. I myself invested my own money. I myself lost my own money. I've haggled with banks, private investors, family office people, family, friends. I mean, we get money from all sorts of resources. So what I like my clients to know is that I have sat on both sides of the table as an entrepreneur and also as a commercial lender. I was in commercial banking for a while and also worked in manufacturing finance. So I've pretty much seen just about everything I think I could see in putting a loan together, in asking for money from different sources, in underwriting. We do a lot of underwriting ourselves so that the people that I bring to the table already have a real good understanding that the story is the right story. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. This is not monotone. This is pretty engaging for me. And the things that we're going to cover right now are, why am I an entrepreneur? You know, there are great jobs out here. I mean, I left a great corporate job as a commercial banker and jumped off a cliff and decided I wanted to spend $1 million and then needed to spend another $1 million and then lost $1 million and then didn't get back the second million. So it was, you know, it was a lot going on. So I really want to understand, you have to, within your gut, understand, why are you an entrepreneur? Not just from the standpoint, I hear it all the time, well, I want to be my own boss. Well, you know what? Your ultimate boss is going to be the United States government, your suppliers, whoever you're buying product from, your family, your children, all those people. I want to talk to you about telling your story. That's why we're here, is understanding how to tell your story. I use the terminology of investor very generically. You should all understand that way. You kind of see it through the peripheral eyes, that an investor is anyone who wants to put a dollar in your hand. Anyone who puts that dollar in your hand to believe your dream and understand exactly where you're trying to go with whatever you're trying to sell or to make. I want to explain to you what a banker or investor looks for when asking for the all-coveted financial statements. Right now it's fall. We're going into the Christmas season coming up, end of the year, and usually second quarter, fourth quarter, it's banker season. They come out like flowers. I was going to use something else, but I think flowers might be a little better. And as a banker, I had to make a certain amount of calls, touch a certain amount of people, ask for the coveted financial statements. That's how the record was kept. What do your financials look like? How are you managing your company? So we're going to talk about that for a little bit. A lot of this is very detailed, but we're trying to condense it down. So we'll talk about the importance of reading and interpreting and selling your balance sheet, which is exactly where you need to be. Everyone talks about income, but in reality, we want to know that you understand that balance sheet as well. And then a return is a return. Just what is a reasonable return to an investor? 18%? Everyone likes to go high, right? 18%, 20%, 30%, 40%. Could be 5%, could be 3%, could be 6%. But that return is something that's understood in how you address it. The next question, usually when we jump into business, you have to answer the question, is your business forever? Is it for now? Is it to make legacy? Is it to make a change or a difference? For Capitol Partners, our business is really to make a change and make a difference and take all of the things that we learned over the last 20-some years, all the knowledge in the financial markets, all the knowledge in negotiating and putting deals together, and be able to share it with our clients so that we've at least left a bit of a legacy and a better understanding of the markets. So I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to ask you to either volunteer or I will volunteer you. Everyone got that? Volunteer or I will pick you and volunteer. Either way. But in general, I just want to know why some of you decided to start or get into your own business. Anybody? Who wants to be first?
Being able to be creative as I want to be.
You want to be creative?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Anyone else?
I want to help others.
You want to help others. Anyone else?
I wanted to build something.
Build something? Anything in particular?
I wanted to build a business that would be around for a while.
Okay.
I want control.
You want control? Okay.
As much, ridiculous.
I just asked you what you wanted. You said control. You got it.
Where I don't have a lot of control over the future of my work.
Future of your work or your time?
Well,
Both. Okay. I'll tell you just a little side note. The greatest thing that I was ever able to get was time with my kids. And I spent, you end up working completely differently. So I might work 15 hours a day. I might work 8 hours a day. But you kind of can get some of that control over your time and family time. Family was very important for me. I saw a hand go up back here.
Yeah, so I wanted to become an entrepreneur because I wanted to make money.
Make
Doing
money.
something I was passionate about.
Money?
Making money, doing something I was passionate about.
All right. I think I remember you from somewhere I had.
Probably do.
But go ahead. Tell me why.
Very similar to him.
Very similar to him? But that's his dream, not yours.
No, I can say when this guy convinced me to quit my
This guy here?
high-flying consulting job, I was saying I'm currently consulting and saving utilities a lot of money, and I want to try to make myself a lot of money, but it's more important than saving a no-name utility X amount of dollars a year. And now I get to work on the question of
So in other words, as I was told this morning, I'm so tired of making other people rich, I want to make me rich. Right? And there's ways to do that. There's ways to do that. Anybody else? I need 2 more people. Somebody volunteer.
My current position, I work, I'm a special ed teacher. We work very, very hard.
Yes, you do. Thank you.
We are limited in our payout. You can only get paid so much. So I would like to work as hard as I'm working and get paid more until
Okay.
we have any.
So in the words of my son, who's a SLU graduate, he's the last one and he's off the payroll. Fully employed, paying taxes, not asking mom and dad for anything.
Congratulations.
Whose sister is a teacher, and he said, you know what, you will be poor all of your life. Right? That's what he was thinking. Because She dedicates herself to the teaching of others. But, as you said, you want to kind of elevate above that and figure out how you can earn a little bit more for yourself, right? So I wish we had more time. We could talk about like taxes and different strategies, but that's not what we're here for today. Maybe another time. All right, so I'm going to keep moving forward because that's not what we're here to talk about. So, how do you entice or tell your story? I mean, that's really the first question that you have to ask yourself. If I'm going to ask someone for some money, Wendy, I'd like to borrow $100,000 from you.
You're out of luck.
I'm out of luck? Why?
I do not have that.
You don't have that. Okay. Andy, can I borrow $50,000?
Depending on what for.
I want you to listen to that. Depending upon what for. Wendy says I'm out of luck. So if those were my bankers, I'd be out of luck, right? And I've done nothing to entice you or give you reason to say, you know what, maybe I ought to just loan that guy the money, right? We've not covered any of that. That's usually where people start, right? I tell people all the time, they say, well, I want $1 million. So do I, right? We all do. But you've done nothing to entice me to build that story or build a case that's compelling enough for me to really believe and understand. When asking the question why you wanted to get into business, that is pretty much the main driver as to why you want the money, to grow your business, right? In most cases, to pay your employees, to pay your taxes, to improve your life, to improve your lifestyle, right? So I want to give you a personal example. I bought a manufacturing company, and people thought I had lost my mind. I gave up a pretty nice job in commercial banking to buy a manufacturing company. So let me answer the same question that I asked you. Why did I want to be an entrepreneur? From the time I was 12 years old, I wanted to own a company. When I was 14, a gentleman that employed my father in a factory showed me what life was like on his side. When I saw what life was like, I said, I want that. And he said, in order for you to get there, you must go to school, get an education. You're pretty well on your way. And you've got to learn a few things before you can walk back through this door. And so I took from that, this is great. But I saw one other part of him that was extremely human, and that was every Thanksgiving and Christmas, this man appeared at our doorstep with a turkey for Thanksgiving, a turkey and a ham for Christmas, and toys. Completely generous and very giving. Knew the names of every one of his employees. Now granted, this wasn't a huge company. Today, they're a nice-sized public company. But he was that human. And I said, I want to be that human, and I want to do those things. He built a legacy company. The name of the company, if you care to look, is called Twin Disc. It's in Racine, Wisconsin, which is my original hometown. So I saw in him what I wanted to see in myself. And when I bought the company, I did the same things. I emulated what he wanted to do. But I didn't want the company solely just to make a bunch of money. You'll make money along the way. But I just wanted to be kind, affect some lives, build a good product, and make a little money. So the main components answer a question, not from you, but for them. That classic question, what's in it for me? So when I asked Andy for that $50,000, I didn't say what's in it for you, did I? I didn't answer the question. Wendy, did I tell you what you would get? We didn't get to that. You just said, you're out of luck. Classic turn down, right? Bank turns you down, what, 7 times? Investors turn you down about 8 or 9 times? But I never answered, what's in it for you? if I can start with what's in it for you, now what we've done is we've begun to bring the bridges together. Yes? Oh, and free to ask any question you want at any time, please.
There's someone that I want to approach with my idea, and I'm trying to, and he has a content that is similar to what I want to do, but it's not really being marketed or mainstream. I think that my idea could do that. But I don't know if this person is necessarily interested in making money from it, so how do I make it a win-win?
You started answering a little bit about it. Their interest is not in marketing, right?
The content that they have is not really being marketed on a brand scheme.
And you want to market on a much larger scale. And so the interest isn't them marketing it.
Right.
Their interest is in creating it, right?
It looks like it.
It seems like it from what you're telling me. So the real attraction is creativity. Who is the person that wants to be creative? Right. So just as in her question, her interest, the person you're talking to, seems as if it's more creativity. Some people just want an outlet to be more creative and make product. No, that's not it. Help me out.
This particular person, I don't think so. This person has a lot of money, a lot of other business entities. This is just a.
So that's not the driver.
Yeah.
The money's not the driver.
Right.
So you have to solve for what the driver may be. So you're not going to come to that person with a story about how much money you can make, and they don't want to hear that. They want to hear about how it affects the market, how it affects other people. Really, you're answering the question, what's in it for me? Right? So this isn't, trust me, what you're going to get during this period, there is no absolute answer, just a little guide along the way. And so you got to be able to step back from your ask. What I encourage people to do is don't just ask. Let's just plan a little bit. Let's just take a step back. Let's consider who you're asking, why you're asking, and really what their sacrifice is going to be. So in the first round of questions, when I'm asking for money, the person that you're asking the money for, they've actually got to think about taking that money out of wherever, making money that didn't work for them or that was working for them now work for them. If it's getting a return, do I get the same return? Do I get a better return? Do I get less of a return? You have to be able to ask the question first and then give them a compelling reason to move that money from wherever it is to you. Right? So we're going to talk about balance. In your story, you have to have balance. The balance is not someone just give it to you, but you give it back to them. Who do you sell to? That's one of the questions that's always asked. Who are you selling to? I don't know your name in the stripes behind you, her. We talked just momentarily. I'm sorry, what's your name? Megan? We spoke momentarily about your company, and you said to me, I don't sell a product to everyone else, I sell enzymes, right? So right then and there, in my mind, you started saying, I sell a specific product to a very small and specific industry. So if we're talking about exchanging money, I've got to understand a lot more about that small group that you're selling to, about your product, the effects of the product, and understand that when I give you $1, how it's going to return back through that wheel. Who are you paying? Are you paying your suppliers? How are you treating yourself? How are you treating others? I gave you the personal example. The best thing that this gentleman could have done is shown me, which he did at 14, how he treated his people. That's important. Because if you treat everyone like crap, how are you going to treat me when it comes time to pay me back, to communicate, and to make sure that I've got the proper return on my money? Right? One of the things not listed on here, the most impressive thing is communication. So Christy and I spoke this morning, and I said, I've got some really nice examples, some stuff I'm working on now that fall right into all of this. This morning I had a call from a client, and he said, you know what? He said, Raullo, you know, we got to close this real estate deal. I need the money now. I'm on fire. Take this one back with you. It's the most profound statement ever told to me. And I was on fire. I needed the money. Hey, I need it right now. I got to have it. I got payroll I got to make. If I don't make payroll, we bounce payroll. I needed it. I needed that money like this. And this gentleman said to me, your fire is not my inferno. And then he paused. And he looked at me and he said, do you understand me? I said, yeah, you don't want to give me the money. He says, no. I said, your fire is not my inferno. And I said, why would you tell me that? I came to you, I want this money, I need it. If I don't have it, I'm going to bounce payroll. If I bounce payroll, my employees are going to walk out. If my employees walk out, then every excuse in the book. And he said, you're in the middle of the fire. You're burning up. It's your fire, right? He said, well, what I want you to think about is if you had a glass of water in your hand, could you put your fire out? He said, what's the glass of water? I said, well, it's got to be the money. He said, no. It's you thinking about how hot the fire is and coming up with a bit of a solution to start putting the fire out. Because if you never step back and understand how to put it out, you'll never put the fire out. You'll burn up. But I tell that to a lot of people. I think it's one of the most profound statements, and it's always caused me and clients to push back. So I tell the client this morning, I said, guess what? Your fire is not my inferno. He said, what do you mean? I said, I just want you to step back for a moment, and let's think about where we're at today and what we have to do to get through today and get to tomorrow. And he called back later this afternoon, and guess what he had? He had a plan. He had a plan. And I said, great. We needed time to sit back, figure out what we were going to do, who was going to get hurt, who was going to get helped, and then come back down the path so that we could ask for the money that you need to solve your problem. It came down to we didn't have to ask for as much. He had a huge number, but that number was everything to solve his problems for today. And I said, well, once we do that, what happens? Are we done? Have we solved the problem? Can we move on? Well, every time we've done that, guess what? Fire blazes back up and we're back at it. So this time when we go to our money sources, we have to explain to them how we're going to put the fire out. And he came back with a plan, much smaller ask, and guess what? I called our source and they said, that we can do. Once we do that, can we do more? We have two offers. Today, next week, next Wednesday, will be the other shoe to drop for him. So when you're trying to begin to entice and tell your story, you have to begin with your history. Your history is very, very important. And I'm not just talking about I grew up here and I went to school here, etc. That's all nice. But the history of why you started your business, what drives you, what motivates you, who do you want to be when you grow up in your business? Do you want to be a $100 million business? We talked, gentleman in the green, you told me you wanted to make a bunch of money, right?
Right.
Someone else told me they wanted their business basically to be a forever business, generation after generation. That's important. That's an important place to start with. Who am I? What have I done? Where am I going? What do I want this all to look like when it's all said and done? The importance is really in your balance sheet. So I'm going to ask a question. It's not 9 o'clock yet, right?
No, not
So I get 2 more stupid questions. Okay? So I'm going to ask you the question, and please, there's no harm, no foul. How many of you really know what a balance sheet and income statement are? All right, put them up. I got to see the hands. Right? Balance sheet, income statement. Right? So the basic lesson is that the income statement are all your income and all your real expenses boiled down to create net profit. Right? But within that, there's also operating profit. There's also a few other things that people look for to evaluate you on cash flow. So I've had clients come to me and say, look, oh, I've got cash flow. I've got cash flow. Man, I've got $500,000 in the bank right now. I've got cash flow. And then we start looking at the balance sheet a little closer and looking at all the people that you owe. And we're like, I don't know if you really have cash flow. You have money in the bank. But in one case, it was money in the bank and you're broke. Because everybody who's demanding money of you right now is taking all of your money. And you need to be able to replenish it. So the investors look for, and bankers are commonly that investor, they look for what your balance sheet looks like, in particular, positive retained earnings, in particular, receivables, in particular, receivables that are greater than payables. If I'm boring you, and it seems simple, it actually is. No higher thought than that. Do my assets equal my liabilities? Or more importantly, are my assets greater than my liabilities? The most basic question you can answer right away. Bankers use this information on the balance sheet really more so than your income statement. Most people who start down this path want to talk about, you know what, I've got revenue of whatever, I'm going to grow revenue and I'm going to sell, and I'm going to make revenue. But how are you going to manage the expenses after you get the money coming through? So let me give you another example, another real life example. Client says, I'm trying to get this contract with Walmart, right? Walmart's a pretty good company. Everyone wants to be in Walmart. So I'm gonna do all this business with Walmart. And I say, well, on a percentage basis, when we look at your receivables, how much is Walmart? The calculation comes up to 78%. So 78% of all your revenue now comes from Walmart. And we've all heard the stories, how tough Walmart can be, how they're going to cut your margins, how they're going to make a lot of petty demands, and you want to be on the shelf. It's a great place to be if you can do it. However, there's an issue called concentration. So if 78% of your new business comes from Walmart, and you hire all these people, and you buy all this inventory, and everything is dedicated to Walmart, and just one day you stumble, late delivery, bad product, you just piss off a buyer. It can be any number of things. And they say, you know what? We decided we're going to go somewhere else. Guess what? That investor who's looking at that balance sheet and trying to understand the risk to that one client, and you have no other options, you're not giving them a compelling story to really loan you all the money. So we shifted. We said, what else do we have on the balance sheet that makes sense for an investor to invest? He said, well, I got this building. I said, wow. Let's look at it on the balance sheet. Let's look at the asset. Your assets are, in his case, large receivables, cash, and this building. The building, using the numbers here, the building has $2 million worth of equity in it. I said, we have a perfect opportunity to entice an investor in, to look a little closer at this concentration problem on your balance sheet. You manage your payables well, but now you've got a lot more to leverage. So now how are we going to leverage that? That becomes our next question. So now we have their attention. As we spoke to others today, we have their attention. The selling part about how much he was going to grow with Walmart and all the great things, and he's going to go from 600 stores to 5,000, kind of like our buddy. Kind of like our buddy. That was nice, but he was managing the income statement. And he was only managing the income, not the revenue of that statement. He didn't tell the rest of the story. So today, now we have a story. Now we have more to offer and more to discuss and more to leverage than just, I'm going to sell Walmart and I'm going to make all this great money. You know what? Doesn't matter whether it was Walmart, Kmart, anyone. Is Kmart still around?
Barely.
Okay, so we don't want to go and talk about selling Kmart. I don't think so. So within all of that, that's your story. That's your story to the banker or investor who's interested in you. Your financial as well as your personal. So you also have to tell the story of your personal. How well do you manage yourself? How well do you pay your own bills? How much have you really accumulated over time? So let's go to, you were corporate, right? So here's a story. So I'm starting my business, and I really want to borrow a lot of money from you, and I think I have great credit, right? And they run your credit score, and they find out it's low. But if you begin to tell them the story, why is it low? You head that off. I have a 600 credit score because I had a health issue, and I'm coming back from it. That sounds better than letting someone find out that you have a low credit score, and you tell them, look, man, I got about an 800 credit score. I don't know why you're messing with me, but I forgot. I didn't make a payment on that medical bill, the utility bills. I'm trying to build my company. They don't understand. I'm trying to build my company, and I need to. No, they do understand. But if you tell the story and the effect on your personal, it carries into how you manage your business, how you manage yourself. What drives you and the business? You don't have a name tag on, so I'm just going to point to you.
Oh, did you need me?
Yeah, I mean you.
Yeah.
So what drives your business?
So I'm the teacher on the tech track, so I'm not exactly sure how to answer your question. Do you want me to pick one of the 10 businesses I started? Or?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, so what drove our business was winning contracts from big pharmaceutical companies. We ultimately had about $2 billion worth of revenue over the course of 8 years. And that contract revenue is actually what drove our business to a successful acquisition.
Perfect. What drives your business? Megan?
Passion about getting my product on the market despite shortcomings.
Okay. Christian? What drives your business?
Grants right now, securing large grants to continue to develop our technology.
Well, you laugh, but that's serious. That
We
is.
all want those, Christian.
That is. Sharon?
Well, passion for wanting to help people and just passion for wanting to help.
Okay. So I challenge everyone to really rethink that. Understand and know what drives what drives you in your business. In that, you'll finally answer the question, what will drive someone to invest? Who's going to believe in your story? Who's going to believe in your dream? Every time you're asking someone, you're sharing your dream. It's very personal. It is very personal. And so you want someone to believe in your dream, and to basically, any of these investors, consider them your partners.
But how much is it really, I care about what I want and I want to save the world versus listen to the numbers, I'm going to make you money? I mean, isn't it all about people want to make money?
To a large extent it is. What would you say of Yahoo? Is it about them making money? Think of it. A lot of tech companies that started out, was it really about them making a bunch of money?
They probably didn't even know they could.
I've worked with tech developers, app developers. Millennial crowd, completely different crowd, right? I'm sure you and I would, certain generation, understand, hey, it's about making some money, driving this stuff, creating this market, driving up market cap, turning a sucker over and selling it. Success. But imagine talking to a millennial who says, you know what, all I want to do is create this app, and I want it to do X, Y, and Z. It's a difference in that passion. But within that, I always ask the question, great creating the app, what's it going to change, and what's it going to mean to the user, right? then we can double back into the money. You're right, I'm going to speak to you now as a banker, okay? As a banker in my life, everything had to be within a box. Here's where I got in trouble. Everything's a deal, right? There's no absolute. They'd say, we want debt service coverage 1.25 times. I said, well, I got a client who has it at 1.19 times. What are we going to do about this? Right? The difference between 1.9 and 1.2 was a certain number. If he didn't have the money today, maybe in 90 days, by doing a few things, that kind of money came in and everything was solved. But it was all about the numbers. So what you have to do, which is why you have what's in front of you, is begin to, not yet, is begin to understand the drivers to getting to those numbers that you can explain and discuss that help you manage your business. Because at some point, it really is all about the numbers. Passion is first, but at some point it is all about the numbers. What was one of the first things we talked about? What's in it for me? Right? If I'm an investor, what's in it for me? You're the teacher, right?
To make money.
You always have to answer the question, what's in it for me? And when you're dealing with hard-nosed investors, they really want to know, what is my return? How much money is in it for me? Right? All these other things mean a whole lot, but they're all part of the story getting to what's in it for me. So what are they looking for? Blood. They're not vampires, but hey, we got to know that you're invested. You ever heard the term, who's ever heard the term skin in the game? Right? How much skin you got in the game? That's the question. Right? I meet a lot of people who say, you know what, I really want you to do this deal for me, but I don't think I want to invest and I don't want to risk anything. Really? Next. You're not telling me that you have any skin in the game. We want your blood. The investor wants some blood. He wants to see you cut yourself and get at it. The lifeblood of your company is your sweat, tears, and your dreams. I always tell people, being the CEO of your company, if you just want to be CEO of the company, it's really the loneliest place that you could ever be, because you got to make every decision. You got to make it happen. So many a time you'd sit in your office thinking about, oh my gosh, I got to pay this, I got to pay this, I got to go out and make this sale, you got a lot to do. Loneliest place in the world. So a banker is trying to size up the advantages for both them and you. Right? That's why they have fees today. I can charge more fees, I can make more money. What's the advantage? You got a lot of money laying in deposits? Let me move that over to my bank and let me make some fees and return that money to my investors. My investors want to know what's in it for me as well and what's in it for them. Everyone wants a decent return on their investment. That return on investment is called interest, right? But interest is actually manageable. Most don't know that. So a bank says, I'm going to loan you money at prime plus 3. But when you finally tell your story and you can actually go through the numbers, there's an opportunity for you to say, you know what, prime plus 3 is pretty high. You're going to make a lot of money. But in order for us to run this and everyone to make some money, how about this? How about prime plus 1? I get it, I'm high risk. But prime plus 1 is about where we need to be from a cash flow and liquidity perspective. There are ways to loan you more money and to help you create wealth right within the lending patterns. So what does a banker and investor look for? First of all, they're looking to be paid for their risk. They're taking a bet. My bet, you've convinced me to loan you the money. And guess what? I want to be paid for that risk. I want to be paid 6%, I want to be paid 20%. I want to be paid something for the risk. I give you the money, that's great, but I got to have a little bit more back. The returns are determined by how long you've been in business. That's where we first start. But let me ask you, who knows what EBITDA is? Anyone, show of hands. Go on. I got a few people. You guys don't know? All right. So I'll tell you like I tell everyone else in that seminar that I did. And please either agree or disagree. I think I need your support on this. This right here is the secret sauce. That's why these dots are red. This is the secret sauce. I don't care what anyone tells you. They all want to know what EBITDA is. They want to know what debt coverage is and what liquidity is, what your liquidity actually looks like. What do you think?
Agree.
You agree?
Yeah.
And you're not a paid plant, right? I don't know, never met him before in my life.
That's what's in it for me.
Oh, about you agreeing with me?
I do.
We'll get to that point a little later. I just want you to buy into my dream of telling everyone what the dream is. And so far you have. So the secret sauce is really EBITDA, debt coverage, and liquidity. So the reason I passed out what I did is because in those sheets are the actual calculations for EBITDA, debt coverage, and liquidity. You'll find them in there. You can. So that's your example. I want you to take a look at, and you'll actually see those points in there. So real quick, EBITDA, earnings. Is there a quiz on this? After 20 years, I better know the answer to this. So let me try.
We're not doing, so earnings before income tax, depreciation, and amortization.
Depreciation and amortization. Right. Okay, I got you. I got you. So you have to calculate EBITDA first. EBITDA is really the milk blood of really showing someone what your true cash flow is. So everyone always starts with earnings. The earnings before, which are really your operating income. And then you add back in the interest, the taxes, and depreciation and amortization. So there is EBITDA plus your cash flow. Operating performance is also often the misleading start. You want to get into your EBITDA and your cash flow. Adjusted EBITDA simply means that you're adding back things like your salary, your car payments, other things that will be more personal, or those subjective things that if you were to liquidate the company tomorrow, that it actually come back to the new owner. The most important ratios or covenants in any bank deal and in most deals are debt service coverage, which is EBITDA divided by your total debt payments, current ratio, which is your current assets divided by your current liabilities, and a look at your tangible net worth. What is that company really worth immediately? Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just nervous. I told you, I feel like I'm taking a
The
test.
reason I'm having a little issue here, just to be clear, pretty much everybody in this room is pre-revenue. Okay?
That's good.
And this is real important stuff, but most of the people here are going to be raising money from, friends and family, angel investors, VCs, before they get to talking to a bank. So I think that's true of most people here. Not all.
And the key is they're looking for an investor.
Yeah, no,
So
all
what
this stuff is relevant. It's just that it's being framed in the context of response, to a loan. I think just to be clear, everybody here is like, well, gosh, I don't have any revenue. I don't have anything to cover debt with right now. And so I think that's maybe a little bit of a disconnect you're going to have with most people in the room right now in terms of where their heads are at.
Okay, so I want to simplify it, right?
Yeah.
So I said originally, an investor is anyone who puts money in your hand, right? Anyone, be it a bank, a venture capitalist, private equity, anyone. You may be pre-revenue, but in order for you to understand what you do after the revenue, you have to understand liquidity, cash flow, balance sheet, and income statement.
Super, that helps a lot, I think.
Is that? So there, to me, more so than anything, especially if you're pre-revenue, understanding these things, again, helps you tell your story to the person who wants to, even if you have to do it on projections. If you're taking out an SBA loans, 75% backed by the government, but they really base more of it on the projections. You haven't gotten there yet. But within the projections, you're telling the same story. Passion, cash flow, liquidity. How am I going to pay back? Now let's talk about loan. We'll isolate loan for a minute. So I want you to invest in my company. Are you making a loan to me, or are you just giving me a grant? Making a loan. Making a loan. Look at it from a different level. When we wake up tomorrow morning, and at 8 a.m. on the East Coast, the stock market will continue to roll, right? So in every large corporate company's books, when you see common stock, guess what they've done? They've actually borrowed money from individuals who say, I like the company and I want to invest in the company. There's a compelling reason to invest, but I actually want my money back. Did they make a loan? The answer is yes. They have to pay it back, right? But you're enticed because you like the story, you like the historical returns. They've shown you what happens if you give them $1, right? They've enticed you by either product or service or whatever it is that entices you. You get to read the annual report, understand the history, who's managing it, who's running it, why they need the money, where it's going, and how much more money is available. Small companies don't have that advantage. They don't have the advantage of having the CFO who picks up the phone and says, well, we got to sell 1,000 shares of stock at $30 a share in order to bring that money in so we can put it to work. But the same holds true. Enticing, the story, understanding what you're getting into. So here's the question I ask. Is your business, and I can't answer this for you, you have to answer it for yourself. Is it scalable? Is it saleable? And as you talk pre-revenue, are you creating a company that is scalable and saleable? Or are you creating something that's just for lifestyle? I need to make $100,000 a year, so I'm going to create a business that pays me $100,000 a year, and I'm good with that. There's nothing absolutely wrong with that. Is it a wealth accumulator? Is it something, is it a product, is it a service that does so well that it accumulates a lot of wealth for everyone? I always like the story of BET, Black Entertainment Television. That gentleman created something that went through just about all of those. He created a scalable company that went to the stock market a couple of times. He created an entity that was completely saleable. He took content that was more entertainment. He made it saleable. He made the company saleable. He made the products and services saleable. He created all kinds of opportunity. Lifestyle, yeah, it was all about lifestyle, right? Content was lifestyle. But it also, exterior lifestyle, but interior lifestyle to him and his team, because they all benefited. Was it a wealth accumulator? Bob Johnson netted $3 billion. Maybe it was a wealth accumulator, I don't know. Was it generational? Generational in the sense that not only was he able to benefit and his wife and family, but there are other employees who benefited as well. So I'm going to move ahead. I just want to do this. What you need to really concentrate in your steps for responsibility, create your projections, create your financials, review your financials. Find someone who you can sit down with and tell your story to and create a financial story and a reason for investment in your company. You want to be able to analyze the debt. What you have in front of you, as far as those forms, gives you the idea of the measurements and ratios that they look for to analyze debt. You want to determine the amount and sources of equity infusion. Here's what we see. There's a show that comes on, I believe it's Friday night, and it's called Shark Tank?
It's on Sunday nights.
Saturday night?
Sunday.
Sunday night. I don't watch it. For years, I had to be the Shark Tank guy. I want to borrow a bunch of money and let them kind of eat me up. But one of the things that I see is that everyone has an idea of how much debt. I want you to invest $125,000 in my company for a 20% stake. Now I'll tell you, when I first hear that, the banker in me says, how did you come up with that? What is the market cap of the company? How much cash flow do you have? You ever listen to the questions that come from Mark Cuban and Damon John and all those guys? They're trying to figure out. Can you imagine if you stepped 5 steps ahead of that and you said, I'd like to tell you about my company? They always start out talking about what? Passion. Here's my product. Here's why it's the greatest thing in the world. And you know what? You ought to give me the money for it. And then they start to whittle it down, a little bit at a time. So how much revenue do you do for that $125,000, 20% stake? Well, guess what? I've only done $20,000 in sales. Oh, nice. And you want how much? Well, it's going to blow up and we're going to be able to make millions. You didn't give me any indication of what that path looked like. And you always see them negotiate back down and around. And a lot of times what I've seen is that they negotiate for a position to really help the client and say, you know what, I know you want total control, but I'm going to be taking a big risk in you. And for that, I'm willing to pay, right? And sometimes it ends well, sometimes it doesn't. So the best defense of that is to sit down, understand your company, understand the drivers, and really determine and be able to tell how much a certain amount of money invested in your company will return a certain percentage to them and make it scalable. One step at a time. You want to identify the proper corporate culture. Corporate culture meaning management. So who's managing the company? Is it husband and wife? Is it 2 best friends? Who is it? Is it someone with a lot of experience in the area? Is it a scientist and a race car driver? Who is it? Who's in there? They need to know, and why. The biggest question is, why are you together? Why is this the management team that's going to take this money out of my pocket and make this into the next great product for whatever it is? So I'm going to skip over something here. Want to get over that? So the first thing you want to do, no, I want to skip over that. So let me get to this. I like this question of, is your business forever or just a lifestyle? Here's a gentleman, Charles O'Reilly. He's a business professor at Stanford. He calls it, in any company, there's organizational ambidexterity, or the ability of a company to manage its current business while simultaneously preparing for changing conditions, right? So today everything's going great. Concept is working. People are listening to you. And then the whole market changes. Here's my example. I owned a company that made fasteners, a distinction. They made screws. We made screws. We made them, we imported them, we made them in China, we made them in India. And they went into Pella windows and doors, Anderson windows and doors, Fortune brand, Silver Line, windows, doors, cabinets. Where was I? More consumer-related house building and some commercial. So we had to make an adjustment. Move the company from that into automotive and aerospace. But there's a cost to doing that. Some hurdles to get over. You need to be certified in automotive. You need to be certified in aerospace. You need to be have an ISO format. You need to buy a lot of steel. You need to buy a lot of copper. You need to spend a lot of money in order to make a lot of money, right? But then the market changed, completely unseen. Money evaporated. I mean, it just didn't move. It was different if they said, we're just going to go over here and have the product made. They were like, you know what? We're going to shut down 3 of our major plants. And so we're no longer going to be ordering, not just from you, but from everyone. The Great Recession came. So you had to be nimble in order to, I don't know what that meant. You have to be nimble in order to move your business along, the changing conditions. You often see successful organizations failing, and it's not obvious why they should fail. That should always be in the back of your mind. The reason is that a strategy that had been successful within the context of a particular time is now all wrong. I end with this because where I want you to go is to think about what you're doing in your company today and be able to entice an investor by telling him, if I run into a problem, here's where I believe we will go tomorrow. That way the money can stay in place or move around the way that it needs to be. So with all of that, I'm going to ask, does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
So I do have a question. So you've identified a forever business or a lifestyle business. What about an exitable business? So a lot of the people in my track anyway, the biotech track, you know, the investor there is interested in getting an exit. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, sure. So their exit is either by, they want to be cashed out.
It's by acquisition typically. IPO is an option. One of my companies was lucky enough to do an IPO very successfully, but generally speaking, it's acquisition by a big pharma company, big device company, yes.
And a certain number of them want to be cashed out and move on to the next thing, right?
Right, that's pretty much everybody actually.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So in the exit, correct me if I'm wrong, you continue to show the investors that your growth pattern is up, your profit is Y, and at a certain point, guess what, guys? We can either acquire or be acquired.
Right.
Right? And so in that acquisition strategy, as you're telling that particular story, you're pinpointing an area by which you know that true profit is actually made for everyone. So as you tell your story, there are some components where you can put your exit plan in place. It's not all growth, it's not all gravy, but you have to know your trigger points by which you actually do want to get out.
Super, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? I have 2 kids. Anything else? Yes.
So you've been in the room making deals, and you've been on both sides of the table.
Mm-hmm.
And you've given us a lot of advice on how to prepare to be on the asking side. What are some of the ventures that excite you the most, I guess, at this point?
That excite me the most. Today.
Today.
One that excites me a whole lot is kind of in line with Freddie. So I guess this is where I plug the commercial, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I encountered a gentleman who has the most fantastic chicken sausage you have ever eaten. I guarantee it. If I put it in here and you tasted it, the reaction every time to this fully natural, non-GMO, I mean just beautiful product is, oh my gosh, this tastes so great. With no aftertaste, no fillers. I really sound like a commercial now, don't I? No aftertaste. But what excites me is that this gentleman, he developed this from a family recipe, and he did so because he stopped eating beef and he stopped eating pork. And he said, I want to eat something for breakfast that's not bacon or sausage. And so he started working on this chicken sausage with a recipe that was, I believe the spices were used for pork and beef, but he applied it, he worked it. I mean, he spent his time and he has gotten it right. The exciting part about it is he's worked so hard on the ground, and then he came to me and he said, can you help me move this in another direction? And I said, sure, where do you want to go? He said, I think it needs to be in Starbucks. Well, guess what? Last week, he met with Starbucks. It was a hard effort that we pushed forward based on the taste, based on he has manufacturing for it. We got to work on a few other elements in manufacturing. But imagine walking into Starbucks, and for those that don't eat pork, you have a chicken sausage alternative. And not just an alternative, because we flavor tested all other brands next to this. We did, quote, our blind taste tests, our friends and family, and everyone came back to the same point. And I said, I watched, and I said, if everyone goes, ooh, and they like it, and they're blindfolded, this guy has his hands on something. So if he can get it mass-produced to the public, and now he has interest from Starbucks. We also have a gentleman from McDonald's, a former CEO, who's taken an interest in it. We've opened the doors, we've made the introductions. Those are some doors that he couldn't open by himself. But between me and a few other people, we opened the doors and brought him in. What excites me is to watch him get excited about his product. What scares me is that we've got to make his business scalable. And we have to get everyone to understand from excitement to what it really takes to service Starbucks, McDonald's, the grocery chains. What excites me, he's in Whole Foods, he did that himself. He's in Kroger. So between what's happening at Amazon and that growth, what's happening in his new retail line that he created, this sausage has the ability to be in everybody's stomach. And I guarantee once you eat it, you're going to like it. How was that?
That was great.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, made me hungry at the same time. It's awesome.
I'm telling you. So maybe in another session, she'll call me back and I'll bring the sausage, or bring him and he'll make the sausage for you, and you will definitely see. Yeah. So I'm excited for him.
And what's the biggest potential downfall for him? I mean, is it partly not knowing what it's really going to take to scale?
I'll tell you right now, what's been his biggest downfall is he is a very kind person and he's very trusting. And it's taken a long time for us to achieve a certain level of trust. I've had a business in the food service industry and he liked that, but in that have been some pretty bad deals. And so we've taken our time to kind of go through them and say, this is a bad deal. You don't give the guy, a large percentage of your company and he's not really doing anything for you. That's the downfall, is unraveling the bad and him trusting that the good is here. But we achieve it because we open the other doors and we say, this is a good guy, watch out, he's a wolf, she's okay, and just kind of steer him towards more success that way. Downfall, too big, too fast, not understanding the marketplace, not understanding everything we talked about today, and truly not understanding his cost. Because you can give away a whole lot. If you don't understand how the dollars work through the company and how to cost the product out, he'll lose. So we're working hand in hand with him on making sure that all those elements make sense. Anybody else? I want 2 more questions. Come on, somebody. He doesn't count and you don't count.
Can you give us an example of a business that you were gung-ho about and it failed? So on the opposite spectrum.
That I worked on and it failed?
Something that sounds like it's going to
Failure in what sense?
Lost money.
Lost money. Losing money now? Negative retained earnings? Because honestly right now, I work with a lot of companies that are in that position. And so I look at this a little differently. So most people say failure is that you lost a bunch of money, right? So most tech startups, they lose a bunch of money. That's not necessarily a failure, right? So I don't really know exactly what that hard definition of failure is. So I'll give you a personal example again, right? I told you $1 million in and $1 million lost, right? So if I'm telling that story and you just looked at the numbers of my company by itself, you would say, man, it was a failure, right? I would. If I'm the banker just looking at the numbers, or if I'm an investor looking at the numbers and you're asking me to invest, I'd say, well, you're failing, right? But when I broke it down as to what was going on, you have certain difficult market conditions. You have certain difficult supplier positions, right? How well do you manage those positions? And is that failure? I'll tell you, when the Great Depression hit us, that company went under. We sunk it because of market conditions. I wish it was just poor operations. It wasn't. So there's a lot of companies along the way, and this is why we talk about telling the story. Because if you can tell your story, good, bad, you can still attract capital. You can still get grants. You can get what you need in order to push the company forward. So I know I'm not really answering the failure question, but I've really never worked with a company that completely just failed. In getting to some companies, the failure is that the unwillingness to heed the advice, recognize the symptoms, and begin to turn it around. So there are some companies locally that we work with. They did go out of business. They did ultimately fail. But a lot of it had to do with, here's the advice. I'm just an advisor. I'm just a consultant. Try X, Y, or Z. And if you fail to do that, and you've asked for the advice, then that could lead to that failure. But 9 times out of 10, companies don't necessarily just fail. They quietly dissipate. And there's always time. I tell people all that there's always time. Time is, people think it's not an asset, but there's always time to turn it, to twist it, and at least start getting it in a direction where you believe or where you can start seeing the results come back. It may not be fast enough, and we may still lead to the same conclusion that we need to shut this down and move on to the next. So my personal example was just that. The company went away. But guess what survived? Me. I'm here right now to share all of that knowledge, experience with a lot of different people to help them understand and survive. Next question.
How are you going to get paid? Front end or back end? Because the only reason I'm asking is because, like, for most of our businesses, we're all startups, and we don't have a lot of capital to get started with, and everything has to be allocated accordingly.
When you say front end or back end, what do you
Meaning, you get paid up front, or after you help us acquire financing.
Oh, you asked me how I get paid.
Right. I mean,
Oh man, that's kind of personal. Kenny, that's,
I mean, like,
I'm gonna tell you like I tell everyone. No, I can't say because you're recording. I won't say that. But go ahead.
yeah, well, you know, like attorneys get paid different types of ways, types of business.
What is the types of businesses like mine?
Right.
Well, here's what I find. Big businesses like mine, they come in and they say, hey, look, we're going to bring in a team of consultants and we're going to need $50,000 up front. Arbitrary number, could be more or less. But we're going to need all that up front. When we get started, we're going to help you write this great business plan and get this book together. And then we're going to go to market and we're going to help find you all this money. And life's going to be great. And then when you get paid, we're going to take that much, right? Here's what I found out. Here's what history and experience has taught me. First of all, most small businesses can't afford that model. I was there once myself. When I asked my friends who were in that industry for the help. And they said, in order for us to help you, you need to pay us X. And so we did, right? And so when you're in that position and you're asking for it that way, you're expecting a quick and hard return. Well, I gave you the money. I need the money now. When are you going to help me do this? You said 2 weeks ago you would help. I said, okay, that's not going to work. Didn't work for me. Works for others. But when I looked in the mirror and I said, most small businesses need help along the way. So I said, let's work a little bit at a time. Let's almost work like a lawyer. Let's do a little bit of retainer here, and let's get a little bit more here. And let's, for the next 6 months, a little bit at a time, right? Because it then puts us both on the same page. So I work a little bit, you work a little bit. We share, and we look for the results. So we start off with, where do you want to be? When you grow up in this time frame, where do you want to be? So we have to help you take the steps, little by little, week after week, month after month, to get you there. The result is typically financing resources do show up. The story is written and told. The understanding is there all the way. The client has learned. Most clients, they will say, I learned a lot along the way. You taught me something. You taught me, and that's what it's really for. Let me teach you how to ask. Let me teach you how to manage. And then you're good. And then I'll come back and visit you, and we'll see how it went. How's it going today? Are you still doing the same things that we talked about? Are you still using the same resources? One resource shouldn't be it forever. When I was a banker, I told them, all I want to do is bring you in, get you to this point, and let you go. I want you to tell someone that along the way I met this guy Raullo, and this is what he helped me do. And there's a company, Century Equipment Company, that started out here, that lost their largest client, that the bank asked them to leave. And I said, no, I trust this guy, I'm going to help him, and I'm willing to put my career on the line for him. And they said, you're crazy. You have a good job. What are you talking about? Get him out of here. But I really believed him. I took all the things I'm talking about, and I said, Mike, tell me the story. How are we going to fix it? Here's what the bank requires. Let's go. Today, they're a very large company. They've had many successes, but they'll tell you, my banker, Raullo, and I'm like, I haven't been a banker in a while, and I'm not your banker, but that's how they see me. More so, you help them along the way. So that's how we do it. We do a little bit at a time, we hold hands, we talk about the story, we get into the detail, and we help you grow. And then in the end, after a certain period of time, we take a little bit on the back end, and then we leave. Not a whole lot. Why? Because businesses are small and you need money. I need to receive something in compensation, but more importantly, you don't need to be raked over the coals and a lot of money taken away from you.
And that was the reason I was asking, but I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. That makes sense to everyone? Anyone else? No takers? Going once? Going twice? We're done.
Thank you.